Good morning, guys. So let's start out with a little joke today. What part of the cheetah has the most spots? Got a guess? Let me hear it. I don't know. Haven't heard it yet. The outside. Yes, the outside of the cheetah has the most spots. Nice try. Okay, so now we're getting into our final section here with chapter 5. Today is going to be some working on it, and then tomorrow there will be some review time, and we'll have a quiz test on it on Thursday. So that way we can just kind of hang out on Friday, no big deal. But let me know how you're feeling with this stuff. If you're having problems or issues, you need to tell me because I want to make sure that you're successful because I care about you and I want you the best for you. So I'm going to do a couple practice problems. I'm hoping to keep this around 10 minutes. That's my goal. So I'm just going to go through these problems. You can always feel free to play them back, but it may be helpful for you to work on them and write them down at the same time to see this process. So I'm right at page 250 in our book, and I'm just going to do the example problems. So I'll try to state where I'm at. So I'm on the very first example problem. So what we're going to see are some of these, you guys see this equation mark. Again, we're going to deal with some equations, which have to do with our equaling, but there's also still going to be some of those inequalities. And remember that has our greater than and less than and equal to, all that kind of stuff. So let's look at this problem. First thing we need to take into account is the distributive property. The distributive property states that when we have this 3 along with our d plus 2, we have to distribute, we have to give the 3 to both the d and we also have to give it to the 2. And since we have multiplication going on here, that's how we distribute it and move it, give it out. So we are going to end up with actually 3d plus 6 equals 12. So you see I multiplied 3 times d, and I also multiplied 3 times 2. So that's how we get our 3d plus 6. And you guys should be able to get the rest. Subtract 6 from each side. So we're left with 3d equals 6. Divide by 3. And you're already screaming the answer. D equals 2. Okay? Kind of messy, but that's the idea. So distributive property, that's a quick review. Just remember how that goes. Alright, moving on. Next one. Let's look at example number 2. So now I'm at the top of page 251. So this one says 4x plus 5, but we got to be careful. 4x plus 5 inside the parentheses equals, 3 times 2x plus 4. A lot going on here. So what property are we going to use? The distributive property, right. So we got to do it to both sides first. So we got to expand it. So we have 4x plus 20 equals 6x plus 12. So we just got a lot of work to do. That's okay. Now, even though we have a variable on each side, that's okay. That's not a problem. We can still solve it. We just need to move them to one side. So the way I see it is I'm gonna subtract 4x from each side because 4x can be more easily taken away from 6 rather than having to deal with negatives. So that leaves us with 20 equals 2x plus 12. And now it's just pretty normal. Just, moving stuff around, having fun. Equals 2x divided by 2. And we get 4 equals x. So don't be discouraged by all this work. Again, I show all my work, and it's best for you to do that too. It helps me process and think through the problem. But just because this problem looks so long, it's nothing to get too freaked out about. But again, this is how we would solve a problem that has to do with distributive property on both sides of the equation. Okay? Now I'm ready to move on, so I'm going to turn the page and look at the top of page 252 at our next one. So now we're back to our inequality, and it has to do with multi-steps. So we're doing more than just one step. That's what multi-step means. So our example problem is 5a minus 8 is greater than or equal to 4a minus 3. Double checking that's right. That's right. Okay? So first thing I realize is that we have the what property? Distributive property. That still functions, it still applies, even though we don't have the equal sign. It means any kind of problem. So that's the first thing I'm going to worry about. So I'm just going to keep this side the same. Is greater than or equal to 4a minus 12. Okay? So now we want to move our variables on the same side. So I'm going to take away 4a from this side and from that side. So we are just left with a minus 8 is greater than or equal to negative 12. Add 8. Add 8. And we are left with a is greater than or equal to negative 4. But we are not finished. It says that we need a graph. So I'm going to go to the next page and create this graph. So we need to graph a is greater than or equal to negative 4. So do a nice big long graph. And you can create yours however you like, but you know that I like to keep our number right in the middle. So we've got smaller numbers this way, and that would be numbers like negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, and then a few numbers this way, and that would be negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. So first thing, we've got our point right here at negative 4. Do we fill it in? Yes, we do fill it in because we have this equal to. So we need to fill in our point. Now we need to figure out which direction we're going. So it's saying that a is greater than or equal to negative 4. So when we say greater than, it means bigger numbers. Bigger numbers are only going to make the equation correct. So we need to move in the bigger number direction, which is this way. Bigger numbers. Because numbers like negative 2 would make sense, negative 1, even 0 would make sense. 0 is greater than negative 4. Negative 4 can be a correct answer because we have this equal to sign. So that kind of looks confusing because we have the equal to. Okay, good. Moving on. Last one. Example number 5. This one can be kind of tricky. So it's saying null, null, N-U-L-L, set, and identities. This is one where if you haven't taken out your textbook, now would be a good time. You might get a little confused. So I'm at the middle of page 252, and it says solve each equation. So we have 3 parentheses y minus 5, close our parentheses, plus 25 equals 3y plus 10. Okay, so we're going to solve this like any other problem. Going to tackle our distributive property first. So we got 3y minus 15 plus 25. You know what, let's skip a step. So we know that that would just end up being plus 10 because we had take away 15 from 25. So plus 10 equals 3y plus 10. Ooh, and that leaves us with something interesting. If you read this again, we have 3y plus 10 equals 3y plus 10. So let's try to solve this out. Let's get our variables on the same side. So we're going to subtract 3y. You could choose either one. It doesn't matter. It's going to do the same thing. And yikes, we get canceled out. 10 equals 10. That's what we're left with. What this means is that we could really plug in any number for y. Any number could work. We could plug in 2, we could plug in 5,274, and it's still going to get the same answer because we have this rule. It shows us that no matter what we plug in, the y's will automatically cancel out, and we'll be left with 10 equals 10. So what we put is that we could say all numbers. We would write right down here at the bottom, underneath, we'd write all numbers. So I'm just going to do the pound sign, meaning numbers. All numbers can work. Okay? So if you ever get to a problem and you're just left with 10 equals 10, or it could be 10 equals 9, that means that nothing could solve it. If you look at the problem below it, B, we get something where it says negative 14 equals 6. So that means no number could make the solution correct. It's a broken problem. So take a look at that problem. If that were true, we would say no numbers. So that's what you would do for that next problem. Okay, so I know I'm 2 minutes over almost, but that should be of some help. So please, 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 please raise your hand if you need help. I'm here to help. We're, like I said, we're going to take about 2 days to work on this because it's going to be it's kind of confusing and a challenge. So we'll look again at this all numbers and no numbers again tomorrow. But go ahead and work on your assignment. It's up on the board. Raise your hand if you need help, and take care.